Hello. Okay.
Yeah. So then my sister and I wrote said,
I'm not beastly.
Just tell the people online.
Okay.
We're having a slight video issue.
Just wanted to let you guys know that that are waiting for us online that we're having a slight video issue, and we'll be with you in a few moments.
They can't see you, they can just hear you. They can just hear you.
Okay. I just would like to welcome you all for coming out on this very, very cold night. And thank you very much. Welcome to those that are online or that will be joining us online shortly. Registration, just to let you know that registration for conference is now open. So you can go to their website and cruise their program and see what's up, and if you'd like to go and register for that. We have a list of historical meetings that are coming up in the area. Again, that's on our website that we have links to. And you can watch our video back if you'd like to on our YouTube channel that we're using now. So just wait for Steve and our speaker to finish doing his techie thing, because that's the other thing he does for me. Okay, we got Steve Fulton, who's the chair from Niagara branch. The tech go-to guy. Anything else that we need help with?
That's why I didn't send a bio.
I asked him for one, but he said no. So
sorry, I have kept my head down for most of the time. What I'm going to do is just introduce you. I know Janice was talking about conference, and one thing we've been doing for the last week is we've been interviewing speakers from across the globe. And I just wanted to kind of show this to you tonight. It was a great thing. So if you could hit play.
A member of the program committee for the Ontario Genealogical Society's Conference 2015. The conference will take place Friday through Sunday, May 29th through 31st at Georgian College in Barrie, Ontario. Our theme is Tracks Through Time. I'm speaking today with Thomas McKenty, who will be leading 4 sessions at Conference 2015. Thomas, I know that you will be moderating a panel discussion on the Saturday morning with some other well-known genealogists. Can you also tell me briefly about each of the workshops and lectures you're giving as an individual and how they will fit with our overall conference theme, Tracks Through Time?
Certainly.
Your first pre-conference workshop, I think, is on Google for Genealogists.
Yeah, and that is actually a workshop in Google for Genealogists. The thing is, we all know pretty much how to use Google search. Unfortunately, genealogists are only using 10%, I think, of what Google can do outside of search. People don't know there are 256 different websites and applications related to Google. So we'll talk about different things like Google Alerts, where you can get alerted when new information is added to the internet. This is great for surname research. We'll talk about using Google Earth, talk about Google Maps and using it more than just getting directions. You can actually create your own personal map and pin where your ancestors have lived and look at migration trails. So genealogy by its very nature is about tracking. That's what I believe. You know, we track information about our ancestors, we track migration patterns, occupations, and all of that. So we need more tools because there's a lot more data there right now, and big data is coming down the pike. So that's what the Google for Genealogists workshop, you'll walk away with new skills and a new look at how to use Google.
Well, Thomas, that sounds like every genealogist could benefit from that workshop. I'm not sure you can fit us all in. What about your second Friday pre-conference workshop, managing the genealogy data monster?
And again, it goes back to big data. We live in the internet age, and it's a double-edged sword. Yes, we have access to a lot of information, much of it free. But I don't know about you, but I suffer from information overload. And I have a saying called a bright and shiny object, and I wind up following those. And you go down a rabbit hole, and you turn around, and it's 2 or 3 hours later, and you wonder, what have you been researching? What is your progress? So I come up with different ways of staying on track, making sure that you're focused when you're dealing with your genealogy data, not just going and finding it, but assembling it, curating it, putting together and evaluating your evidence. Again, it all comes down to knowing the right tools and also knowing how you yourself work. The nice thing about this workshop is I'm not saying you have to use this tool only. I give the participants options because I know that we all work differently as genealogists. So you'll understand how to name files, how to manage folders, either in Windows or in Mac. And we'll also talk about some neat tricks you can do, metadata. You can actually add data to a file photo and have it travel with that file. Again, it all comes down to working smarter thanks to technology.
Wow, I hope I can get in on that one too. Thomas, I'm particularly interested in the lecture that you'll be presenting on the Sunday titled Tracing Your New York Ancestors, which is something I'm having trouble with. How will that fit with Tracks Through Time?
Well, I grew up in New York. I grew up in Sullivan County in the Hudson region, about 90 miles north of New York City. And I know one of the key events was basically my ancestors made tracks, and a lot of New Yorkers made tracks when the Erie Canal was finished in 1825. So New York has always been difficult for tracing ancestors and genealogy, especially if you come out of the New England region where the records are so well kept and they're just different. New York just seems like it's another planet sometimes when you're doing research there. So we'll come up with ways. We'll talk about the state census, which a lot of people don't know about. We'll talk about the motivations for migration. The Erie Canal had a lot to do with that. And then a lot of ancestors wind up taking the Great Lakes route after the Erie Canal. We'll talk about loyalists too. I have several loyalist ancestors who moved up north, and so it's New York. It's tracking those New Yorkers and figuring out where they came from, how they came to New York, and then where they went to.
Well, that sounds great. And finally, Thomas, can you tell me a bit about yourself so viewers can get to know you and your enthusiasm for genealogy?
Well, I've been doing genealogy for over 20 years. My great-grandparents actually helped turn me on to genealogy. I was blessed that they helped raise me. My great-grandmother passed away when I was 28, so they were a big influence on my life. I first got interested during the Roots miniseries in 1977. And then in the 90s, I picked it up full-time as a hobby. In 2008, I was laid off during the Great Recession. I was working in the information technology field, and I just wasn't satisfied working in the corporate world. So I struck out on my own and started my own genealogy business, high-definition genealogy. I knew what I wanted to do. I figured out what I don't want to do. I enjoy public speaking. I do a lot of webinars as well. I travel about 50,000 miles a year, just air miles, teaching genealogy. Came back recently last year from Australia, teaching on a genealogy cruise. But I'm also starting to develop online teaching. I think that is where genealogy education is going, especially for the baby boomers. And so I'm excited to be in the genealogy space right now. I try and break down technology into little bites, little small pieces that we can easily digest. I never try and talk over someone's head in terms of technology or genealogy. And it's a slow pace. And I would would love to see more genealogists build their technology skills.
Thank you, Thomas. Thomas McKenty, it's been great speaking with you today. Thanks for telling us about your sessions. I'm looking forward to attending and meeting you in person. Viewers can register online for the conference at www.ogs.on.ca/conference.
How's that? I'm here? You got audio? The speaker may be turned down a bit because I cranked it down real fast. And we've got audio online. Hello, I'm there. Okay, and I'm just going to help you get my PowerPoint. And there we go. And we just click over to there, and then I should have full control. Yep. Perfect. Okay, good evening. I just wanted to share that little bit about conference with you. We just take that opportunity. There's going to be some great things that are going to be happening. I'm involved with others from the Niagara branch. We're going to be streaming in 4 or 5 speakers from England, from I believe Salt Lake City, and a few other places. So technology has really changed everything that we do with genealogy. It's one of the biggest hobbies that we have. That technology has really just changed everything, and it's very exciting. But tonight I'm not here to talk about streaming and all that kind of stuff. But I just want to welcome those that are online. We have 19 or 20 people online, and they're all across Ontario, or it could be across the globe for all we know. So it's very exciting that we can do that, and people can hear this. But tonight, I want to talk about cemeteries, and it's a passion of mine. The cemeteries. I know it's really creepy, but that's okay. I'm a creepy kind of guy. I can handle that. But just before I get started, I'm chair of the Niagara Peninsula branch, and I've been chair for 8 years now. 8 glorious, long, glorious years, and still holding strong. We've got a wonderful executive down in Niagara, and we're very thankful for them. But what we want to do is, there's going to be a mix of Hamilton and Niagara talk tonight. We're so close, we're on each other's borders. I have family here in Hamilton. East Lawn is on Nash. That's where my grandfather's first wife is buried, and I've got family buried at, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Whitechapel? Yeah, Whitechapel. That's actually, that was the first cemetery I went to in Hamilton as a newbie. So I kind of went under the old cloak and dagger and tried to get the information. But they were wonderful people. They were absolutely wonderful with me. So my cousin, Joe Wilson, is our cemetery coordinator, and him and I spend quite a few Saturdays during the summer cemetery hunting. And we get our gear and off we go. As you can see, this is what I normally look like when we go out cemetery hunting. We actually made up shirts for the branch, so we kind of have a more official look when we show up on people's front doors. Because, you know, we're just 2 creepy guys wanting access to your property. So we try to look a little bit more professional in what we do. But this picture, I love this picture that we found. It's behind a greenhouse, and I believe this is the 12 Mile that it's on, but I could be wrong. And that's the actual train bridge that the via everybody uses to get into St. Catharines or get through. Actually, that bridge I think just made the news a while back, but we won't get into that. But this little cemetery is just sitting right here on the edge of the 12 mile, and that's where this original family was buried. And I had said to Joe, I said, imagine if we went through the land records down the 12 mile. Just imagine how many cemeteries possibly, family cemeteries possibly, could be along the 12 mile. His response, that's not a project I'm ready to take on. I said, that's fine, no problem. But off we go. So what we want to do is just, oh, I also have woodland too. My grandmother and grandfather are buried in woodland. We have that is, okay. Well, we're going to just do a combination of me and then we'll just do a screen share. If not, just keep the camera to it. Okay? Do the best we can. What we want to do just tonight, we want to talk, your first cemetery. Headstones and their stories, the land, the maps, the neighbors, and the preservation. Because ultimately, that's what it all boils down to. Okay? I just want to thank, and I'm not sure if many people realize that this is Google Street View. This image is from Google Street View. Have any of you ever used Google Street View? Oh, if Catherine's used it, you've all used it then. We're good. It's a wonderful resource. A lot of people don't realize, but what people don't realize is right there in the corner is a little button, and it looks like a counterclockwise arrow. And if you click on that, Google's been doing Street View. I think they're on their 5th run. Well, you can click that button, and it gives you years going back. And the first one is 2007. So you can go, I think the last one that I looked at was May 2014. And then it was 2012, and then 2009, and then 2007. So for finding things, if you're out in the winter, this is the first place I go because Google only does it in the summer. So if you're trying to find something or trying to understand something or even visiting a childhood home, you get a better picture, you can back it up. If there's a big truck right in front of the house for the 2014 picture, back up to 2012, the truck's more likely not there. So that's right there. A lot of people don't know it, and it's a great resource for kind of stepping back in time for pictures. So let's talk about our first. Everybody knows your first cemetery, and not the one that you had to go as a family and buried a loved one, but as a genealogist. And this is the first one that I went to. And you kind of get on the property if it's a big cemetery, and you're kind of like looking around. Is anybody watching you? Like, this creepy person is starting to, go over across the property and you're looking at all these stones. I don't know if you ever got that feeling, but when I first started, I'm like, okay, what are they going to do to me? I'm not really sure. But this was the first one here. This is the Clark Family Cemetery down in Niagara. It sits right on the road's edge of Cataract Road. Most people wouldn't even know it's there. They whiz by it every day. These stones are back to 1860, and they just sit there. And nobody really ever notices them. I didn't bring the pictures tonight, but there's 2 trees. Well, there was 2 trees of that size. And I had happened to go by one day, and the one tree had fallen. And one of the main branches was holding that tree up. And it was about right there. It was about 3 or 4 feet on top of the stones. And if that branch wasn't there, those stones wouldn't be there today. They would have been driven about 25 feet straight down, and they would have been destroyed. So immediately we made phone calls to, because this is Thorold, I actually had to take the workers, the parks people out to this location because they didn't know the cemetery was there. And I'm like, okay, you didn't know the cemetery was there, but they were very good about it. They were awesome, and they got it cleaned up and they protected the stones. And we're now looking into, because the stones are broken, but the really neat thing, and we'll share a little bit more later. We did some cemetery dowsing there, and we expect there's about 13 or 14 burials on that location, just not the 3 stones that you see there. So this was the first one that I attended to. It was great. It immediately hooked me. It was so fascinating that you could see these stones and you could still read them, and then the deterioration of them, and then people driving by. It was kind of that love-hate relationship. How could you ignore something so fascinating? So it was a great thing. And then it's the discovery of people. One little story I'll share with you. My wife and I spend our Saturdays. It's a wonderful hobby. As a couple, we go out and photograph headstones. We figure that just deepens our relationship. It's a date night. This is what we take. We're good with it. We went out to a cemetery out in Stevensville that's never been transcribed. Didn't even know it was there. Massive. What do we figure? About 500 stones? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Fort Erie. Okay. Stevensville, Crystal Beach, Ridgeway is all Fort Erie. So we're photographing away, and of course it starts to rain, and we're 2 rows away from being done, which is rather frustrating. So we go warm up and stuff, and I'm not sure if this was a separate day or I ended up coming back. We had to finish it because we're involved in the Canadian Headstones project. We put the photos online. Well, doesn't this blue pickup come racing into the cemetery as I'm photographing? And all of a sudden, this old guy gets out of the pickup, checks out a few stones, goes over, pops the hood to his pickup, whoops her up, and decides to do some regular Saturday morning maintenance on his pickup right in the cemetery. And I'm like, all right, he's trying to intimidate me. He doesn't want me here. This is what's going on. So I had nothing to lose at this point. I figured, well, the whole day's shot. I'm just going to hang out. Eventually, he's going to get hungry and leave. One of us is going to get hungry, and one of us is going to have more of an urge than the other. And I really wanted these stones, so he was going to lose. So eventually, an hour passed, and he gave up, and he left. Very quickly, I took the rest of the stones, and I got out of there. But it was the first time that I had ever been intimidated by someone over a cemetery. And I thought, how bizarre that was. Then I ended up going back to some older members and found out that's why the cemetery was never transcribed, because the cemetery wouldn't permit the branch to transcribe it back in the day. And I thought, oh, well, I have them now, and I'm putting them online. So it's a great experience. And that's what really deepened my passion for it. One of the things that we have, and this is where we get into the cemeteries. Cemeteries are a beautiful place. They have amazing headstones. They have amazing stories. And that's where you got to start digging. And this is where you got to go from there. Dee, could you just go, sorry to interrupt, can you just go to the box that we brought? In there is the write-up for this. I need the stories, okay? This here is William Dalton. He's a grave digger in Niagara Falls from 1845 to 1916. And he documented everything. He documented what the temperature was, how deep the snow was, how hard the ground was, if he dug up someone else and had to rebury them, where he put them. He also documented if he liked you and if he didn't like you, and if you got what was coming to you, or if you were a wonderful person. And when my wife comes in, I have a couple short stories I'll share with you. But ultimately, Niagara Cemeteries, Hamilton Cemeteries, whoever cemeteries, somebody had to dig the hole. There has to be some sort of documentation in some sense. You know what I mean? So that is one story that can start coming. Now, we're very lucky. We just originally scanned the original documents. We're going to create with the Niagara Falls Museum, we're going to put these online for people to enjoy. But you can start anywhere in the book and just read. You know what I mean? They're constantly fishing out body parts out of the Niagara River because, of course, it was a very attractive place to deep six yourself if you didn't want to live. But it was a great resource. And even in the Hamilton Cemetery, somebody had to put the holes in the ground. I mean, somebody's had to document something. It's just a matter of asking. You know what I mean? Especially with the older churches. Yeah, it's creepy. I'd ask Hamilton Cemetery for everything. I'd ask him because I can. And the local churches. I would go to the local churches. And who cared for that during that time period? Is there documentation? You know what I mean? Because even this William Dalton, he couldn't spell to save his life. He spelled everything phonetically. He would document who the minister was, who was and then his parents, or the person's parents were there, or this person's brother, or were there as well. Sorry, I think my glasses are there. That's it. It did not print. Hang on. Just excuse me a second. It's on the screen here. Let me just read it to you. Can I get it here? Can I carry this? No. It says here, one of them says, January 23rd, Thomas Sire, age 33 years, 1 month, died at his father's home in Chippewa with consumption and was buried in Drummond Hill Cemetery on the south side of his brother Frank. It was a very cold day, a strong wind blowing from the west. His wife felt very bad. I would hope she would feel very bad, but a nice funeral, 10 below zero, very cold day. And then the minister, and the fee for digging the hole was $2.50. The next one was December 9th. Charles Brown, colored man, died December 3rd, 1912 at Cornwall on the Hudson in the United States. Cause of death, skull fracture. He was the son-in-law of Mrs. George Smith on Robertson Street, but was no good. He never used his wife well, but run away with Joseph Lundy's daughter, a white girl, then left her, so he got his just due. He was buried on the south end of John Smith's lot 272. He was brought to Mr. George Morris and then to Mrs. Smith at the BME church, and a sermon was preached to the pastor. Quite a number turned out. A nice afternoon, no snow, no frost, and the minister and the cost of the funeral. So it's a wonderful resource that we have, and that some of the churches here in Hamilton could be very much sitting on and be very much unaware that they have them or have access to this information. Okay? So it's one way that you can get the information beyond the funeral homes or beyond the church register. That's where these diaries, that information is where you can start putting the flesh back onto the bones and start understanding who these people are. Making the dash. Yes, I have. Let's continue on. The land that a cemetery shares. That land was not always a cemetery. There's a history behind it. There's land records, crown patents, documentation of different things that went on during that time period before the church was on the property. This particular one that we're trying to, this map that we're representing is a cemetery. It's OGS number 3287. And it's on a parcel of land just across from the new St. Catherine's Hospital. Well, we spent an absorbent amount of the day hunting this cemetery. We did find, we had some documents from 1960. The last time the cemetery was documented, showed fence posts. And we even found the original fence posts they were referencing to. But we did not find it. And we're hoping to go back come spring. The most we come out of that with was a bucket full of ticks that we had to deal with. But it was interesting. It was an opportunity to learn and to kind of really discover why we're doing this and why we want. Why did we spend all Saturday afternoon hiking through and all we got for it was a bunch of ticks? Because these people who were here before us deserve this. They worked this land, they built this land to what it is today and what we enjoy today. They should not be forgotten. Because the hospital is about here, this land is now under direct threat for development. And we are now watching that land very, very carefully. We do know that the local Home Hardware owns the land, and we will be expressing ourselves to them that they need to be careful and realize that there is a cemetery on that land somewhere. So land records, crown patents, the original, the Big Atlas books. What year are those, Judith? 1878. They're all online. The maps are. I was just about to finish. Okay. The maps are online. And we use them in reference to go back to these areas because they're very good to show churches, cemeteries, and different things during that time period. The really neat thing is that, and this is fairly technical, but our cemetery coordinator has been able to take those maps and you can actually overlay them on top of the original, like the current Google Maps. You can combine those maps together. And by doing that, it really puts in perspective very quickly where those areas are. Because, roads have changed and landmarks have changed. And he just actually came to me in the last couple of weeks and saying that he may have found 2 more down in Fort Erie that we're going to have to look for. So remember land records, crown patents, again, church records. That land was not a cemetery originally. It has to have some sort of documentation behind it at some point. Okay, so that is another place to look for information. Yes.
These maps that you just read, is that just Niagara or is it all?
No, the maps are right across for Ontario. Yeah. I will bring it up. What to do with a piece of paper? It is actually on my piece of paper, I do believe. If not, I'll bring it up at the end of the meeting. We'll bring it right up on the internet. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, not all my information got printed out on this, and I was running late tonight. So yes, that's what builds the story with the cemetery as well, because now you know what the land is, who owned it, okay, why did it get started. There is a cemetery. It's on the next one. Yes, it's a good example. This is Chippewa, down Niagara Falls, bottom end of Niagara Falls. We had a gentleman. His nickname is actually Mr. Chippewa, and he is the local historian for the area. And he was quoted in the paper saying that there was an old German church in Chippewa, and he believes the vacant land, because the church is gone, there's a cemetery on the land. And we're like, oh. So immediately we made a phone call. We got hold of him. We went down and we met him. See if I can get a smaller one. Where are we here? There's the church right there. This is an example of those maps that Judith is going to bring. There's just a small symbol of a building that represents a church, and then them talking about the cemetery. So that got into a long, drawn-out process, because you have to be very careful when cemeteries are on private property, and we'll talk about that a little bit more down the road. But you've got to be respectful, because it's not your land; it's someone else's land. And if they tell you to get off, you got to get off. You can find yourself in a heap of trouble. So we started to explore this. And we actually found a book. We stumbled across a book, and it was just early history of Chippewa, which you could find at your local library, or if you're talking Hamilton or Flamborough or any Stony Creek. You know what I mean? There's tons and tons of books out there about early history, and people can inadvertently write. And that particular book talks about the church, the land, but the people are buried at the other cemetery. There's a bigger cemetery, and the Protestants are buried on this side, and the Catholics are buried on this side, and that's where they're buried. But without this book, we would have never known. So we've gone back to him and said, okay, we now know where they're buried. They're buried at the other, so this land is clear. Okay, so different resources, early history books of the area. There's lots of people that write about history, and they hear all sorts of stories. Yeah, like these.
There's Lincoln and Welland.
There's Lincoln and Welland, and did you bring?
I brought Brent. This is Wentworth, but it's an original copy, so it's 140 years old.
We're not touching that
No,
one.
we're not.
Okay.
The other one is at home. I'm doing a presentation on Saturday.
So these are the big atlas books. They're very hard to come by anymore. Like the reprints, you'd have to be gifted them, basically. I heard the last one on eBay was about $150 to get. So, but all these maps, the map parts, are on this website that I will share at the end of the thing. And you can zoom right down to them, and they give you a picture of that time period. This is Port Colborne. So it's a great resource that you can go back. The nice thing about these is these books is they're pictorial. They have like little stories or information. We're talking about the different cows of that time period. It's just a great resource. And then basically founding people, and it talks about population. Most of these you'll find, like I know at the Niagara branch, we have all ours at our library. These guys have theirs here. A lot of the OGS branches have these, and they're a great resource that you should use. And it's another way of breathing life, not only into the cemeteries, but into that time period. Okay? So they're the historical atlases of, and then for the county. Okay, this one is Lincoln and Welland, 1876. So they're a great book. I know. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Christmas is coming. Okay. All right. Moving on. I'm sorry? Oh. So this is just finding out the information about the cemetery prior to it being a cemetery. You know, why there was a church put on the property. You know, who was the minister of the time? You know what I mean? Finding out why the area was developed the way it is. That's where you can start getting all that information about that cemetery and what the thought pattern was for the people. Okay. Getting the story to the cemetery is important. Okay. So that's very important. Neighbors. Neighbors are wonderful people, and they can be not so wonderful people. We went to one in St. Catharines. Guy's been living there 25 years. No, there's a cemetery there. There's not a headstone to be found. And he told me a little story. He goes, city one day put up a sign representing the cemetery, you know, cleared the land, everything. 2 weeks later, they come by with chainsaws and chop the sign down, and they haven't been back since. Don't know why, but I would have never known that story if I hadn't have approached the neighbor. Because he lives, and then the other side of the fence is just a big open field, and he lives right next door. So, talking to people, they're okay. If you approach them in a very positive and open way, or find someone you know who lives in the area that will get you in. People can be very superstitious. They can be very paranoid. I won't mention any real names, but we were trying to deal with a cemetery and out in Smithville, and we went for a Sunday drive. Joe and I, we got this kind of Crime Stoppers tip on a cemetery that only really the locals knew about, but the cemetery was landlocked, so nobody was ever able to get access to it. So we went to the landowner, and we went in our shirts, very professional, you know, this is who we are, this is what we want to do, blah, blah, blah. She went crazy, went ballistic on us. And absolutely not. You are not stepping foot on my property. Get off my property. Do you realize the trouble you can cause me, and all this kind of stuff? We were actually taken quite back. We were pretty upset because we had spent all summer accessing private property after private property. People were just really good. And this lady, she just went crazy. Well, finally, and I'm hoping, have they come on yet? Have you seen them on the Google Hangout? They would be in the other thing. I'll look in a minute. Hopefully they'll come on. In the last couple of weeks, we finally managed to get access. She went and sold the property. When we visited, she was right in the middle of selling the property. And that is why we believe she went completely bananas. She didn't want us to talk about it. She didn't want any opportunity that could completely wipe this out for her. We did finally get access, and we were very excited about that. But I do believe I have a few pictures on the PowerPoint that I'll share with you in a bit. But talking to people, just being open and honest with them. But this is where it boils down to. This is cemeteries. that are owned by municipalities have bylaws. Technically, they could say, you go to your relative and you get off. They have the right. You have a good open relationship with the cemetery. I have a volunteer down in Pelham who's unearthed 300 headstones out of the ground. They've all sunk. And she has a beautiful working relationship with the town of Pelham. Now they call her, and it's great. She can do whatever she wants. She leaves clumps of dirt all around. They just pick it up and take it away for her. And when she's cleaning up brush, and it's about building the relationship with the municipality, and not going in there saying, well, I'm a genealogist and I deserve this. Well, no, you don't. And we just want to make sure people are very aware of that. If people get into arguments about copyright on headstones, there's no copyright on headstones unless somebody is taking a meticulous design. I seen a headstone with somebody who engraved a Harley Davidson on it. Okay. Yeah, that can be copyright because that's there, but the actual person's name and death and birth date is not copyright. You can photograph that. There's no risk in that at all. But you need to have a good working relationship. Private cemeteries on private property, you don't have a leg to stand on. If they don't want you on, they don't want you on. If you don't mind going down with a trespassing charge, then all the power to you. But I'm telling you not to do it because you need to have a good working relationship with people. Because if you go and blow it, then you're blowing it for everybody. Okay. One of the things that we've been telling people is we'll go on, we'll photograph it, we'll document it, we'll GPS it, we'll put it on our Canadian Headstones website. And if people are starting to annoy you, tell them to go to the Canadian Headstones website. At least we've gotten access to it. That is really the main goal of us going out, is getting access to it. Okay. So talk to the neighbors, be good with the neighbors, and be kind. Yes, sir.
I follow what you're saying about access and being careful when it's a privately owned site. But in terms of the requirement to protect cemetery, do privately owned sites not come under the same Cemeteries Act and the requirements?
Yes, they do. And I was going to show that in a bit, but it's a good time to do that. There's registered and there's unregistered cemeteries. Okay. All the registered cemeteries, and OGS is very much involved with this with the registrar for Ontario for cemeteries. A vast majority of them are registered. Every cemetery is protected. So if you're digging out in your flower garden, and trust me, this happens in Niagara all the time, digging up the roses, up comes a Pioneer Cemetery. They do it all the time, especially down in Fort Erie. It's crazy. And as soon as that happens, you have to notify the police and the coroner. Okay, so registered or unregistered, it doesn't matter. They have the same protection. The difference is that is a cemetery registered or unregistered, and what that means is with the land registry office. I just found that out tonight from our past president, Shirley, because I wanted to make sure that I had the right information. You can't force someone, even the government can't. If you own a piece of property and you find a cemetery on it, the government can't even force you to register it. We've got to convince you to register it. Okay. The problem is, and even the registrar said, and I would have to, that they're willing to work with the land owners to get it registered. If that means waiving fees or whatever, I don't understand the whole process yet, and we want to make sure that it's clarified. But then the problem is now you have to have a land survey, you have to have an archaeological dig. Who's responsible for those costs? Possibly the landowner.
But it would probably prevent you from selling the property, or make it difficult to sell the property.
It could be.
Because the requirement to protect those grave sites and at least not let it get a whole lot worse condition than it is now would follow to the next owner of the property, I
Yep.
presume, right? And you wouldn't be allowed to build on it and
Nope.
things like that.
Nope, you cannot once it's known. And that's the problem. We had a cemetery down in Pelham that was plowed under. It wasn't registered. They seen it and they wanted to build and they just plowed it under. Yep.
Do you remember Dr. Kenny coming down? We found native burial grounds.
Yep.
Where they were going to build houses.
Yep.
They couldn't build until the whole site was excavated.
Yep.
And he proved it was an Indian burial ground.
Yep. Yep.
After they removed the bodies, reburied them, they were able to build.
Yeah. And the government is willing to relocate or to work through the process, but it's a process. You know what I mean? The problem is people in the past have gone to landowners. Well, you have to register this, and they get in their face. And that is the wrong way to do it. Okay? It's their land. Let's just boil it down to this. It's their land. Okay? And if you come to me and start threatening me on my land, well, we're going to start going back to this, medieval thing about me defending my land. You know what I mean? So they do have rights. I would hope and pray that anyone who finds a cemetery would respect that cemetery and protect that cemetery as best as they possibly can. Because I always go back in my mind. Is when that cemetery, when that first person was put in the ground or the last person was put in the ground, there was somebody crying at that point. And I try to remember that person going, okay, that is why it's important, because there was someone there crying over these people. So that's where a lot of my passion comes from and why it's important. And if you think there's no cemeteries out there yet to be found, well, you're going to be sadly mistaken. So let's just carry on. So preservation and protection, digitizing the cemeteries, community groups, school programs, media awareness, and social media. With the digitizing the cemeteries, there's lots of them out there. Billion Graves, and my mind's just completely gone blank at this moment. Find a Grave. There's a bunch of them out there, but the one that the Niagara branch has affiliated with is CanadianHeadstones.ca. He's a member of OGS. He's got some great technology. He's got a board of directors. It's non-commercial. It's non-profit. There's lots of great reasons why we went with the organization. And the Niagara branch is the coordinator for the Lincoln and Welland counties. Let's face it, people are putting these headstones on all the time. As a branch, we were doing transcriptions and we were selling the publications and stuff, but that is no longer happening because a lot of this is going online. So we figured, well, if we're not going to beat them, then we might as well lead them. Because as a genealogist or a family historian, you want accurate information. You don't want wishy-washy information. So if we're going to do it, then let's do it right. And that's what we did. And if you go on any of the Lincoln Welland cemeteries, you will see our trademark. It actually takes you back to our website. It has more resources and stuff that we've been working with. It's a great site. And then once the picture's taken and once it's transcribed, it's there. Anybody in the world can access the records, which is a great resource. Because there's cemeteries, trust me, there's cemeteries out there. We had to hike a kilometer through a cornfield in mosquito-infested country to get back to it. And we photographed it and we put it online because, I know Catherine or yourselves don't want to do it. Yes, Catherine.
You would have, jurisdiction over the Grimsby Cemetery.
Yeah. It's on our list.
Trinity United Church had a large cemetery at the back.
Yep.
Well, about 15 or 20 years ago, they decided that they were going to move all the stones.
Yep.
There was a big hue and cry about it. And they did move the stones. And they made a garden. Because they found out that the bodies had been transferred to Queen's Lawn. But not all the bodies had been
Right.
transferred to Queen's Lawn.
Yep.
There's a part of that ground that still has bodies on it.
Yeah.
And the reason that they're there, they died of the fever.
Yep.
And they didn't want to take them up. They wanted to leave them where they are. Now, a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
So if you have anything to do with the Grimsby group.
Next time we're out in Grimsby, I'm going to come pick you up. We'll have a cup of tea. We'll go down to the cemetery.
Yeah.
We'll do it on a nice summer day, not like
Well,
today.
The bodies that are still there.
The bodies are still there because of the fever.
Trinity.
Yeah, in Trinity. But what we'll do is we'll do a cemetery tour, and I'll video you, and you tell that story.
Okay, then.
And I'll buy the tea.
Oh, fine.
See, sold. True Scotswoman.
It doesn't take much.
So yes, there's a lot of stories like that where bodies are not moved because of the fever, because of this. There's a cemetery down in Port Colborne that they hired a private contractor to move the bodies. Well, unfortunately, they found out that, maybe their work wasn't that good and they missed a few. So, and the problem is now they don't know where they missed a few. So they know that they all weren't transferred, but they can't find the ones that weren't transferred. So it's kind of a difficult situation. The reason why, we'll continue on. Community groups. Well, we are a community group. OGS is a community group. The branches are community groups. People who share the same passion and getting them involved, because I was doing genealogy for 10 years on my own before I joined OGS, and I learned more in 2 years than I learned in 10 years on my own, and the history and the stories and all this great stuff. So community groups are a great way, but not only that is getting out to other community groups and sharing what our passion is. Especially, I had an opportunity in Lundy's Lane Cemetery. We found a veteran's headstone being run over because it was lying down and it was on the roadway for the cars. And physically, you could see the tire marks. And I called the Legion. I called a few people, and the next thing I know, we've got steel pipe now in the roadway protecting that stone, making people aware. School programs. I don't know about you, but out in our area, we have a very old cemetery, St. John's Cemetery, down in Effingham, Pelham. We visited when we went to public school. And they took us out there, and then we explored it, and we learned about it. And we learned about Pioneer Days, and we learned how to make butter and make a spoon, a wooden spoon, and all that kind of neat things in Pioneer Days. It's a great opportunity if you're involved in schools and stuff like that. Kids just think it's neat. They don't think it's creepy. They think it's just great fun. It's a way to get out of school and let's go hang out in a cemetery. So that's a way to do it. Media. I've written a few articles. We had some vandalism in a local cemetery. I'm assuming it happens in Hamilton like it happens anywhere else. You get some well-respected individuals that decide to redecorate a cemetery, and letters to the editor. You know what I mean? That's the perfect time to start sending letters to the editor. Start, making people aware instead of them driving by them all the time because they just don't pay attention to them. Okay? Awareness. I can't pass a cemetery without one eye looking at it. Even the guys at work, they realize we're going by a cemetery. I'm like, just slow down just a little bit. No, we got to get somewhere. Just slow down. and I'll just take a quick glance, see what's going on. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. You know what I mean? Because if people like us aren't going to um, worry about it, then who is? You know what I mean? Um, the other one is, and the reason why I've got the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier here under awareness. We were up in Ottawa, and my family and I went to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier to pay our respects. And there was a lot of people around, and then there was a young mom with her family, and their little one was running up and down the sword, the length of the sword. And I was trying to be very humble about the whole thing. And I just looked at her and I said, "Ma'am, do you know what this is?" And I don't think she was completely understanding what I meant. I'm like, you need to control your child now. You need to, this is someone's grave. Get him off. And then the beauty is it inspired a 2-minute conversation with the mom and the boy, because they weren't from this country. And I'm trying to be very careful how I say that, but they weren't from this country. And it allowed me to just share my passion for a couple minutes of, of this tomb and of cemeteries and of people of the past. And she was very gracious after it. But it allowed, to talk about it in open public and make people aware of it. Social media, the final one. I'm not sure how many of you are on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. But if you haven't given it a whirl, genealogy has really taken over social media. There's a lot of stuff out there, and we're talking instant communication between people and documents and pictures, and it's just amazing. A lot of I know Hamilton, Niagara. There's tons of branches. I know OGS. Everybody's on a group. Yeah, Nipissing. Like there's a whole onslaught. Kent, Essex, Hamilton, Niagara, I can't remember them all. But then one of the other neat things is, and people don't realize, is social media is YouTube. Most people have used YouTube. Well, genealogists have taken that over too. We're using it here tonight. The folks at home are actually watching this streamed live onto YouTube. And 20 currently. And this was all shared 5 minutes prior to this meeting on all the Facebook groups of OGS. So then they all, the people who've seen it switched over to that. But there's Roots Tech just finished down in Salt Lake City. They got videos on different conferences, technology, and all that kind of stuff, talking about cemeteries. There's just a ton of opportunities there. Niagara, we do cemetery tours. I take my smartphone, wherever that is, and we go through the cemetery. And I just point out different headstones and, tell the little stories, and then we post it onto YouTube. It's something you can do because members in British Columbia or in California will never get here. They're not going to jump on a plane to come check out, Victoria Lawn or Hillside Cemetery. You know what I mean? That's probably not high on their priority list. It would be high on mine, but maybe not on theirs. But it's a great, yes, I have the social life of an eggplant, and I'm proud of that.
I was thinking, yeah, of course, that's the way it is.
So there's great opportunities on social media that you can find out. And like I said to Catherine, I would take her out to that cemetery in Grimsby. Let's do a video of this, put it on YouTube, because who's got this information? Who's got this story? Let's collect this stuff, because then we can start breathing the life into why, you know what I mean, and why people are thinking about it. So just moving along. Advocacy in the Niagara branch, and I can proudly say is probably on the top 3 things. Well, it is top 3 things because OGS only has 3 things in that sense. It's the top one about making people aware. We visited this cemetery a couple years back, and it sits on the side of a ravine. And these grave markers were just tossed over the ravine, picked up, thrown over. Just parts of headstones, as you can see. Let's face it, municipalities who are responsible for abandoned cemeteries or cemeteries in a sense, they're not a moneymaker. So they hire contractors out to care for them. You may or may not be able to see, but right here on the headstone is lines, and those lines are weed whackers. And they're literally slowly chopping the stone off. This just a broken one that's fallen. Again, this one right here. A stone of that age from the 1800s should not bear a nice white mark. Excuse me, on it. That's been hit by a lawn tractor a couple times. More than a couple times. That one's been just run over or clipped with the blade. This one here, beautiful old stone, 1871, I believe. A year later. Yeah. No, that's a lawn tractor. That's contractor. This is where it goes for me, the love of the cemetery to the boiling of my blood cemeteries. Because this is unnecessary. Absolutely unnecessary. And we're so thankful that we have the original photo, and that photo now resides on Canadian Headstones where it can live forever and a day. But now that stone doesn't have 2 seconds, and you can't, just because of the damage on top, you're not going to recover that stone. It's just not a stone that's snapped in half that can be put into 2 steel, U thing and just slid down. The whole top's gone. So the reason why I wanted to show you these pictures is because it's not just age and time and acid rain and all this kind of stuff. It's, municipalities trying to take care of these things, vandalism. And I keep going back. These people were before us. And without these people, we wouldn't have what we have today. Niagara, Hamilton, anywhere in Ontario. These people deserve the respect that they deserve. Because I hope and pray 150 years from now, when I'm in the ground, there's folks like you that are out there trying to take care of this stuff. Okay? I really, really do. Moving on. Laidlaw Family Cemetery is one that we rediscovered just over the summer. If you think there's no cemeteries still out there that haven't been discovered, you're sadly mistaken, because we actually tripped across, I think, 3 of them this summer that just hadn't been forgotten about. So it was just out in an open field. As you can see, it's out in farmland. And there was headstones. Everything had been kind of plowed up to one big mound. And that's how we found all this stuff. Just sitting in an open field. We're very thankful our new vice chair has done some extensive research on this family. Land records. He's gone for the land registry office. He's gone for the church records. He's gone through everything we talked about tonight to try to understand the cemetery before we try to understand the people in the cemetery. And you'll see Laidlaw here, and originally we called it Laidlaw, but it's actually the Green Cemetery, the Green Family Cemetery. And we're going to amend that. But Emma Laidlaw, I think that was William Laidlaw, and Margaret. No, there's me. There's actually 8 burials, we believe, and it's just a round mound of dirt. And we believe there's 8 people buried there. So keep your ears to the ground, especially out. Remember when it was farms, people would bury their dead at the riverbank, at the back of the farm. You know what I mean? There's still cemeteries out there. There's lots of them out there. And we have lots of summers to explore and try to find them. This is a picture I got thrown in. This, my cousin sent me into about, oh yeah, there's a headstone in there. Yeah, it's the last time I listened to him. Very quickly, I'll just share this with you, and then I'm going to see if they're online. Most people know what water witching is, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you can also do the same thing with graves. These are just basically 2 coat hangers. And this is my cousin Joe. He's actually doing it. This is out in Tintern. And there's a big open section here. Well, up the road further was kind of an industrial home for the, how do you say it, mentally disabled for that time period. And that's where they were buried. There was no headstones. So we were kind of just seeing that if it would work. And there are people buried there. So I need a volunteer. And you look like the kind of guy to volunteer. So come on up for a second. I'm going to see if this works. You want to put this, okay, you stand right there. He's not dead. We know we got that. We're good verified there. So 90% of the people can do this. And they just basically sit in the folds of my fingers, so I don't move them. And I've had my 11-year-old daughter at the time, and my cousin did it. They will work to a point, even on the living. Okay? I didn't move my fingers. If you want, I can take old Bic pens and stick them on. That's what I did to my cousin because he thought I was cheating him. Yeah, but see, if I go, okay? So you do it. Just do it like in, see how I got it just there in the thing?
Yep.
Okay, you don't have to squeeze them too hard. And if they don't go in, please do not keep walking at me. Okay? Because they probably would hurt. Then we'd be testing on a dead body. See? And you see, they're not moving. Yeah, 90% of the people can do it. Okay? See, he's doing it again because he doesn't believe. Pretty freaky, eh? But they're just coat hangers. That's all they are. And they're really, some people can say that they can tell the sex of the person and all. Yeah, okay, whatever. And to be very honest, if you're going to ask me right now, how does it work? I don't know. You figure it out, let me know. Because I don't, and I'm not going to overly get concerned about it. But the neat thing is, in Pelham, where the volunteer was, she knew of a headstone in a certain area, but couldn't find it. So she called me down on a Saturday, and we did the dowsing. And by Christian burial standards, the head is pointed to the west. So we knew of the general area. So and I'm crossing them for demonstration purposes at this point. So I was just walking, and they crossed, and then they uncrossed very quickly. I'm like, okay, that's left and right. So I come to this end and crossed, I started here, it crossed 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's 6 feet. Okay, I'm at foot. This is west. The headstone's right there. Boom, boom, boing. Dug it up. There was the headstone. We had it. Okay. Now she's got me booked probably all for spring of next year. because there's a huge area that that has to be done. This is the one that we just got access to. It was landlocked, and these are just pictures of a couple from a couple days ago, and not a couple days ago, a couple weeks ago. What day? I don't know. I can't remember. It was on a Saturday. We came, we saw, we had a great deal of fun. But these are the first pictures of these headstones that anybody has seen in years and years and years. So we were very excited to get access to them. Finally, the last picture, I believe it's the last picture that I put on. Yep. Anybody know anything different about that? No? I just want to see if they're on. Yeah, hang on. Sorry, folks. Just got to see if they come on. No, they did not. Yep. It's not a mirror image. It's a stone outside of the cemetery. Possibly. Suicide? Yeah, there's one other. Anybody? This is a Mennonite cemetery, but I've also seen it in a Catholic cemetery. One's Catholic, one's Protestant. One's Mennonite, one's not Mennonite. Somebody committed suicide. Somebody, just didn't, like you said, didn't lead a very. He got his just deserve. They were not allowed on consecrated ground. They weren't allowed to be buried on the consecrated grounds. So just that alone is a story all to itself. Oh, it's Joe. Here. Hey, Joe. Are you there? No, he's not there. All right. Yeah.
If you come across a stone that you're interested in, let's say it's one of your family, is there any particular way to be able to read it better when it's very hard to read? Can you clean it? Any tips there?
Yeah, that's the difficulty with the stones. The general consensus is you do nothing. Can you just take this and call him back and see if he's just having access issues? A flash from an angle. I've heard of just spraying water on a stone. I've seen people put baby powder on a stone. We've seen one with somebody who put tinfoil. Yep, we've seen that. I've got a computer program at home that allows you to take the picture and then changes not the hue color. So you change the stone to a blue or to a red or something like that. But then there's one that turns the stone into kind of a three. Huh? With the link I emailed them. Okay. It brings the lettering out into 3D. It's a software type software. Do not put anything on the stones. That's just the bottom line. Don't chalk them. Don't take a wire brush to them. The most that I use is I have a old, not a horse brush, but just a very soft brush that I use for wiping the mold off of a stone. But that's it. There's, you know what I mean? That's part of the reason why we're trying to get them photographed quickly.
To a cemetery in Mississauga, and we used to have permission from the church to do rubbing. Like you had to have permission to touch those stones. That's about 15 years ago.
Right. And just in the last couple years, it's really come out that people just shouldn't be doing anything to the stones.
But they allowed us to do
Yeah.
some rubbings.
And
stones, but we had to have permission
yeah.
to be there.
Well, permission number one, just to be on the property. We had a cemetery in Welland that there was a couple headstones that you could just touch and they would fall over. So in word of wise, in many things that you do, you should never go to a cemetery exploring by yourself. You should always have somebody in case something goes wrong, for liability reasons, um, and just for safety reasons alone. My wife's brother used to work for the township of Wainfleet, and they were doing some cemetery work and stepped on a grave and went right through. It was an old wooden casket, and the ground just gave heave, and he went right into it. You know what I mean? It happens. There's stories of little ones getting crushed by headstones that fall over because they're running around. You know what I mean? It's a cemetery. It's not a playground. But the one thing, and I know Alan Campbell, our president, is going to get back to us on the branches and stuff for insurance, but the branch, as a branch volunteer, we have insurance that protect volunteers, not just from if somebody trips on this cord here, but we've had a volunteer who was in a cemetery, got hurt, broke her arm, and the insurance covered her. Okay, so if you're going to do stuff for the branch, I always try to get volunteers. Okay, don't go it on your own. You're going out, and I empower it, and okay, here's the publications, here's this, here's that. You need to go under the auspice, if that's the right word, of a branch, because then you're better protected. The branch benefits from your work, you benefit from the work, and you're covered, you're safe. Okay, but always, always, always seek permission. Seek permission. Ask those who have the experience before going onto cemeteries and stuff. I've dealt with the Hamilton cemeteries a couple times. They were good with me. They may not like Judith, but that's okay. But it's a great it's a great hobby. It's a great thing to do, and get out into the cemeteries and learn not just about the cemetery, about the people, but the land that they're buried in and everything else, and to protect these people, because they're still out there. So, any other questions, Catherine?
I was going to say, Steve, I've been trying to explain to the teachers that the older classes, the kids from here who are ready to go into the next stage, what we would learn a little history, a little geography, and in some cases, some of the family history. And as a young child, they probably do have grandparents alive.
Yep.
And if they're really lucky, they may even have great-grandparents. Yep. And that's when to get the story.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people, I keep telling that to people all the time. Starting the kids off young. You know what I mean? And even now with technology, I tell people all the time, if you have a smartphone, or if you have a tape recorder, or if you have the digital recorder, you have your family around at Christmas, throw it in the middle of the table, hit record, let it record. If you can't deal with it right away, stick the file away until you're ready to deal with it. Or, we have the technology to capture this information. We need to take that time to capture it and to and record it. Just one last quick story. Sorry. We went to on last Monday, on Family Day, we had a family member pass away, And my cousin and I, of course, funerals in a genealogy world, that is the place to go, because then you get to see all these people you haven't seen forever. Well, this side of the family didn't really communicate that well, so I was rather excited to go. I think he was excited too. I don't think his wife was that excited, but we were excited. And we got talking to all these second cousins and grandkids that we didn't even know existed. So we're handing out our branch, because we have branch cards at night. We're handing them out. Call us, call us, call us. We had an opportunity to speak to a little one in grade 3, and she had just finished a genealogy project. And I said to her, I said, number one, I want to see that. And then number two, I said, let me tell you a little secret. And my 7th great grandfather is Christian Warner, who's buried in the cemetery on Sandplant Hill going into Niagara Falls. And he first settled St. David's in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Well, I got into that story, and I've never seen 2 eyes open up like saucers in my whole entire life. She was completely fascinated with the whole experience. And then I looked up at Mom, and I'm like, you got to call me. You got to call me, because there's more where this come from. So, yes, absolutely want to encourage the kids to be involved and to understand.
That the archives in Ottawa have a program for children. It's geared to the children, and they'll send you out as many copies as you want. Say if you want you to do that, and you have 50 children or 30 children in your class,
Yep.
they'll send you out this. And
Sorry, we took some to the fair in Burlington.
oh, you took some.
Yeah, because we got some. And I approached the child and I said, would you like to learn about genealogy? Would you like to learn about your family? And right away, the kid would say yes. And I said, we can't do it. We must have handed out 40 or 50. Well, if I saw somebody that looked like they might have grandchildren, I did the same thing. I gave it to them. Really, really interesting. So whether they're going to do it or not, I don't know. But yeah, that's the age group you got to get.
Yeah. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this. Definitely learned a new passion and get a better understanding of cemeteries. And the one good thing about today is it's one day closer to spring. And one thing closer to spring is we can get back out into the cemeteries. So we'll start digging up a few headstones. So thank you for having me.
Hello, am I on now? Okay, we use the microphone because on the topic of this evening, I thought cemeteries, okay, no big issue. Oh, you want me to move over? Okay. And then I thought, I know at least 6, 8, dozen cemetery stories myself. So I'm going to tell you one very quick one, which was in attempting to find my great-grandparents' marriage record. I never did, by the way. I did all sorts of looking because the bride's parents had given part of their land for a church and a cemetery. Well, the United Church Archives denies that there was ever a church there. There's newspaper records, and the cemetery is still there, and we photographed it a month before Christmas, before the weather got awful. And Google has never been down the road that it's on. There's one for you. Anyway, when we first talked about Steve coming here, or when we talked about, not first, last Friday, because Dave and I had dinner with Diana and Steve. And it was a rather silly dinner at times because he was referring to this topic as dousing for dead people, which my brain then said the subtitle should be bringing your ancestors to life. And I thought, I don't think I want to go down that road. So he corrected my my misconception. I would like to thank you for
You're very welcome.
information
Yes.
For a reminder that we owe a tremendous amount to the people who came to this country and
Yes.
made their lives, sometimes under incredibly difficult circumstances.
Yes.
And that having a passion for something like genealogy and specifically cemeteries is
Mhm.
one of the things that really makes life terrific. And that's why I like genealogy. Thanks a lot, Steve. And
No,
that's for you.
you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank you all again for coming out. And you never showed your big
Oh,
weapon. That was the other thing that you kept teasing.
you cannot cemetery hunt unless you have one of these. Because if it ain't dead, it certainly will be by the time you're finished. Yes. Yes, that's the whole conception of it.
Yep.
So these are here if you want to give them a try. These dowsing, they're give them a whirl. Sorry.
Okay. Well, thank you very much again for filling in last minute.
I'm going to thank people.
Yeah, fine.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Diana, for volunteering him to come. Okay. And thank you for those people that are online. We really appreciate it. We're really glad that it's, where our numbers are climbing. Last month's YouTube video actually saw 135 views total. So, I mean, we had 20 people online at that time, but people went back and watched it or joined in afterwards. So we're getting there, little by little, but we're getting there. Just want to remind you that the WISE meeting is next Wednesday night here. So you're welcome to come again. WISE is the Welsh, Irish, Scottish, and English group, and they get together and brainstorm and have ideas and brick walls, things like that, and help each other out. It's a small little group, and they do a great amount of work.
We're talking about heraldry and secret societies throughout the ages.
Heraldry and
Going back to the Roman times.
secret societies of the ages. Sounds interesting. So yeah, definitely if you'd like to come, we'll have the doors open at 6. The meeting starts at 7, so it's next Wednesday. Again, thank you very much. We'll have a safe drive home. Thank you.
The office will be open for about 10 more minutes if anybody wants to pop in. Steve mentioned a website. The website, if you Google McGill and Atlas, it should come up, but I will read it to you. It's no www, okay? Digital, digital, .library, .mcgill, that's MCG, not MacGill, .ca/County Atlas. They have just the maps, but it is searchable by name. So if you know your ancestors came from, Wentworth County and Glanford, you can figure out, that's where my ancestors came from. And you can find where their land was. It'll pinpoint it on the map, and then you can go and try and figure out where it actually is in real life. And that's hard, actually. Certainly. For anybody, digital.library.mcgill.ca/County Atlas.